and welcome to FinextraTV. We're here at Money2020 in Amsterdam, and kindly joining me now is Satty Saha, CEO of TransUnion UK. Satty, thanks so much for taking the time out of the busy event to come and speak with us.
Thank you, and my pleasure.
Really good to have you on, and it has been a very busy Money2020 for you. You've been speaking in a panel session today, haven't you? And that's where I want to start, because the topic was credit education, and a really big one at this year's event. So let's delve into the detail of that and tell us, where does the responsibility lie with credit education?
I think the responsibility for it squarely sits with the industry. And you know, for far too long, you've kind of allowed the lack of education to actually disempower consumers, right? Consumers have been making bad choices for years in terms of choosing loans that are far too expensive when there are cheaper alternatives available in the market. They're not fully aware of what they can afford, and they don't understand fully the consequences of defaulting on a loan. The fact that if they default on a loan, it actually makes the loan more expensive for them. Right? So I think the responsibility lies squarely with the industry, with the lenders and people like us to make that change, make sure we are helping consumers learn about how credit works, right? And actually empowering them to make the right decisions for themselves.
That's right. So what can those financial providers do then to help educate those consumers with their credit?
I think the biggest thing that they can do is bring about transparency, right? Alongside transparency, there's got to be a whole lot of work that we can do with the financial service institution by putting in simple educational tools as part of their banking app, right? Where consumers can learn about credit report, learn about their score, learn about what the score means for them in real life. Is their score good, bad? How do they fare with the rest of the country? And whether their score would allow them to take on additional credit or not, right? And for me, that then allows consumers to make the right decisions, to choose the right set of financial products for them.
All right, thanks for that, Satty. And also on your panel session, you discussed a consumer-centric approach, which closely aligns to consumer duty. So what's your message then to those financial providers as we look at those changes within the regulation?
So for me, consumer duty it's probably come at the right time. It's a bit of a shame that's required the regulator to get the industry to act on it as opposed to us acting on it ourselves. Because the long-term health of consumers is really, really important for our own, long-term success and sustainability of the industry, right? And for me, therefore, there's a whole lot that we need to go and do. Invest in consumer wellness and well-being. We all talk about mental wellness and well-being all of the time in our organizations, right? And across the society. It's time we started talking about financial well-being and wellness, because a lot of our mental well-being and wellness actually stems from being financially okay, right? And we kind of gloss over it. There's a whole lot of education, that people get in schools and universities on how to make money. But there's very little education that you get on how to manage your personal finances. And it's about time we started that journey, and that's why that was the big mission for us when we launched our product Credit View. The big mission really was for us to make sure every person in the UK becomes literate about their credit standing. Not only understand what their credit score actually reflects. These credit scores at the end of the day reflect their behavior. It's a reflection of how they have acted historically on the use of credit. But for me, understanding the consequences of their behavior and making the right decision so that from a future point of view, they kind of make it, solid and future-proof, so as to speak, right?
Well, as you say, there's a lot at stake, and we've covered what can be done to protect the consumer. Now let's talk about some of the opportunities, specifically around buy now, pay later, which is a really big one at Money2020. So tell us, what are the opportunities in that space for the consumer?
I think buy now, pay later has become really, really mainstream in the UK. And it's about time we got the data into the Bureau. There are over 20 million consumers who are using the product. And today the information sits outside of the Bureau. 20 million consumers is as much as over 40% of the credit active population in the UK, right? So that data needs to become part of the mainstream credit information system. Right? Now, there are certain proactive players in the market who have started contributing the data ahead of the regulation coming in. We're expecting the regulation to come in, sometime next year. But ahead of the regulation coming in, there are certain players who are being proactive, providing that information. And that information is good for the industry because, one, it increases coverage. Two, it provides complete information about consumers. Right? Three, there are lots of consumers who are actually first-time borrowers. Right? And it helps them build their credit profile. It helps them come up the credit ladder. And that's good for consumers. Right? And there's this myth that buy now, pay later is only used by a certain age segment. Our own data has shown that, prevalence of buy now, pay later cuts across ages.
That's interesting.
Right? We have not only, the Gen Z using it, but we also have the millennial and even some of the baby boomers using it, right? Which was a big finding for us when we looked at the data. But also, it's not only people who are credit hungry, who are not able to get a loan facility from somewhere else. It's people across the credit spectrum. So we also have customers at the top end of the score bracket using buy now, pay later, and they're actually using it very smartly. They're using it to substitute, high cost, other lending facilities that's available in the market with a low-cost buy now, pay later option, right? And that, for me, really is in the interest of consumers because they're actually able to use the innovative financial tool that's out there in the market to their benefit and actually reduce their cost of debt. Right? So that's really, really interesting proposition for a consumer.
And it's been fascinating watching this space evolve, and I want to end on hearing about TransUnion and what your role is in this space. Where do you fit in?
So as you know, we were one of the first major credit reference agencies in the UK to bring the industry together. All of our peers, all of the lenders and the buy now, pay later data providers to actually get them to agree on the data standards that should be used, because we didn't want every reference agency to have their own data standards. We wanted to make sure that all of us come together for the common good of the consumer. Because like I said earlier, it's really important for us to make sure that we are providing all of the tool sets available to the consumer to really educate them and make sure we empower them to make the right decisions and the right financial choices. And therefore, we played a leading part in making sure the industry set up the standards and is kind of ready to start receiving data ahead of the regulation coming in next year.
Wonderful. Well, Satty, thank you so much for sharing your insights on this really interesting space, and looking forward to catching up further down the line to reflect on those. But for now, I'll let you get back to the event. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, and my pleasure to be here. Thank you.